and welcome to tonight's Bible study. Let me know if y'all are hearing this. I will look and make sure that things are good. We are Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Um, let's go ahead and read it. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know that they do wrong. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth. So let your words be few. A dream comes when there are many cares, and many words mark the speech of a fool. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. He has no pleasures in fools. Fulfill your vows. It is better to make a vow. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Do not let your mouth lead you into sin, and do not protest to the temple messenger. My vow was a mistake. Why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear God. If you see the poor oppressed in a district, and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things, for one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are still higher. The increase from the land is taken by all. The king himself profits from the field. Whosoever loves money never has enough. Whosoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. As good increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owner, except to feast their eyes on them? The sleep of a laborer is sweet. Whenever they eat little or much, but as for the rich, their abundance permit them no sleep. I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owner, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. This too is a grievous evil. As everyone comes, so they depart. And what do they gain, since their toil for the wind? All the days they eat in darkness, with great frustration, affliction, and anger. This is what I observe to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toil under the sun during the few days of life God has given them. For this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possession and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and to be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. I don't see anyone saying that they can't hear, so I will continue as if though we can hear. Um, with that said, there's really three things that I want to talk about concerning this particular proverb. Um, we see here the first part. It says, picking up in um, verse 1 of Ecclesiastes 5, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know that they do wrong. And today we go to church, and it's a place, the building where we gather, and this is very sung advice, is we need to be careful when we go to church. It says, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer sacrifice of fools. And it goes on and points out the sacrifice of fools really is when they say things and promise things and do things that they have no intent to fulfill. Listen to what verse 2 says. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart. We have an old proverb that says, haste makes waste. And people who do not stop and think and say the first thing that comes to their mind, or say the same old thing over and over, quite often they're quick to speak, and without giving any thought to what they are going to say, they say sometimes some very foolish things, dumb things. So let's read that again. It says, do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. And I don't know how many of y'all have ever said things in church. I know as a pastor, I always have to speak up in church. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm being paid to do, is to preach and teach. And quite often, my wife is quick to point out to me when I said something that the way she usually does it is, did you really mean to say that? What did you mean by saying X, Y, and Z? And so we really do need to be careful, not just me, but all of us, what we say. Don't be quick in saying things or hasty in our hearts. And the Bible points this out. God is in heaven and you're on earth. Let your words be few. And this reminds me of what Jesus said about promising and making oaths in what we call the Sermon on the Mount. We see that Jesus pointed out that we don't need to make oath to God and swear by God. And as a matter of fact, whenever somebody usually say, I'm telling the God honest truth, I know that the likelihood is they're not. As a matter of fact, Jesus makes it quite clear in the Sermon on the Mount. Let your yes be yes and let your no be no. That your word is your bond. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't live by that. That what you say, you really mean. And that your word is your bond. And that's what it is saying here. It says, when you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it, verse 4. He has no pleasures in fool. Fulfill your vows. In other words, your yes is yes and your no is no. Don't promise things, say things that you know first is untrue, or B, promise things that you know you're not going to do. As a matter of fact, here's my advice. Under promise and over deliver. Unfortunately, a lot of people over promise and under deliver. And that's what it says. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Verse 5. Verse 6 says, do not let your mouth lead you into sin. And I could spend all day just on this. How often our mouths get us into sin? As a matter of fact, James, in the book of James, right, that our tongue, our mouth gets us into more problems than anything else. And I can personally vow for that, because every time I've ever been in trouble, it's because of what I have said. It's quite often the reality for almost all of us. We get ourselves in trouble. I know that's what happened to me every time. I say something and later have to regret it, or later have to take it back. But here's the thing. Once something is said, you can't unsay it. Once it is done, it is done. And said, do not let your mouth lead you into sin. And do not protest to the temple messenger. As a matter of fact, what that means is once we do say something, the best thing to do is admit we were wrong and move on. But unfortunately, when people are wrong, what do they try to do? Justify. Well, why we did this and why we said this. And, you know, we tell everybody, the temple messenger, so to speak, we tell everybody what we said and how we said it. And, you know, just go on. It says, my vow was a mistake. You know, why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hand? Reality is God isn't angry at us, never has been. Just admit it. It says, my vow was a mistake. What I said was dumb and stupid. Just admit it and move on. Unfortunately, most people don't do that. Instead, they justify and explain and try to blame somebody else or why they did not do what they said they were going to do. God is not interested in that, and here's the truth. Neither is anybody else. He goes on and said, much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear God. And I think that's some advice that we should really just, fear God, be good Christians, and do God's will. Second part of this study today is in the next few verses. It says, if you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things. Unfortunately, I used to get, all frustrated when I saw problems, and I got frustrated, for example, and as I mentioned, I worked 26 years in the federal prison, and somebody would come and tell me a lie, and I'd catch them in it. And after a while, I finally realized, if you know a person is a liar, what do you expect them to do but to lie? And if you know somebody is a thief, what do you expect them to do but steal? And one of the things that we see is, if you do see people poor that are oppressed, don't be surprised by it. The reality is, all human governments, all human system, be it communism, dictatorship, or even our democracy, we are imperfect humans. And as imperfect humans, even the church itself is riddled with problems. We know that for a fact with our current denominational problems and our current churches. And the problem, it says, if you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things. For one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both is still higher one. The increase from the land is taken by all. The king himself profits from the field. And so whenever we see oppression and such, especially on the lower level, it's because it is being permitted by people who are above that person. And I know this for a fact. I was in a hierarchical system in the government. I was the head chaplain. And as I looked around and saw officers that acted out and oppressed the inmates and did things that, in my opinion, that was wrong, and I would confront them and say, hey, that's not your job to oppress them. The inmates are here as punishment, not for punishment. And I tried to explain the difference between that the inmates are here as punishment. They're paying their debt to society by being confined, but they're not being put there for punishment, where we take, because we are the officers, and we abuse them. And what I found after a while was the reason these officers could do this was because the lieutenant that was over them quite often were people who oppressed inmates and allowed and permitted. And the further I understood this in the hierarchical system, if you find someone who has any authority, especially on the lower level, and they oppress people, the reason it happened is because those who are above allow it and they partake in it. And that's what this verse is all about. It says, if you see a poor person oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised. Look always at the top of the leadership. And if the leader is incompetent or the leader is profiting by it, the whole system is corrupt. As the system goes on, it says, for one official is eyed by a higher one. In other words, there's somebody that's over them who is allowing it. And there's another person over that person. And it says the increase from the land is taken by who? By all. The king himself profits from the field. That's the second part about this lesson today is in corrupt systems, it's usually from the top all the way to where, and it's only when good people stand up and say, hey, this is wrong, that we can do something about it and change it. And so when we do see corruption, don't be surprised. When we see people are being oppressed, don't be surprised. Our point is not to partake in the corruption and not to oppress others and to try to change the system where we are. We're never going to change the system above us. We can only change the system below us and where we are. The third part of this lesson has to do with love of money and wealth. Picking up in verse 10, it reads, whosoever love money never has enough. Whosoever love wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owners except to feast their eyes on them? The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, their abundance permit them no sleep. This goes on and talks about hoarding of wealth and other things, but really what it has to do is about money. And I like to say that money is neutral. It's neither good nor evil. It can be used for good or evil. But whenever a person uses it for evil, it's because they love money more than people. And listen to what it says. Whosoever loves money never has enough. James put it this way: the love of money is the root of all evil. In the book of James in the New Testament, the love of money. It did not say money is the root. It says the love of money. And it says whosoever loves money never has enough. And they do anything to get more and more and more. And that's what we're talking about, is anyone who loves money more than human beings and other. And I like to say that money is neither good nor bad. It's a terrible master, but a good servant. And we should always love people first and make money our slave. Let me explain what I mean. Money is neither good nor bad. Some of the people who have done some of the best things in the world were rich. Because they were rich, they were able to help a lot of people. Some of the people who have done the worst things in the world were rich. But the truth can be saying about some of the people who did the worst things were poor. It's not the money, because all money does is make us more of who we are. I want to repeat that. All money does is make us more of who we are. And the love of money is the root of all evil. Money in and of itself just makes us more who we are. So if you have it, you because you have money, you can use it more. Solomon's advice is said, the sleep of a laborer is sweet. Whether they eat a little or much, the fact is that they got out there and they earned it and they produced it. If they have little or much, it doesn't matter. It is sweet. But as for the riches, their abundance permit them no sleep. And so a person who is wealthy and over wealthy and have all this rich things doesn't mean that they're happy. And here's the thing, money does not buy happiness. Money only buys things. And that's why I said we should be masters of money, not slave of money. Money should be a servant, not a master. And we should labor and work for what we have. Solomon continues, I have seen a grievous evil under the sun. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owner. Wealth hoarded to... There's nothing wrong with money in and of itself. It's when we hoard it. And the word hoarding is when we want more and more and more, which is another way to say love of money. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owner. And whenever we hoard something, it harms us. He goes on, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, they have nothing left for them to inherit. And so Solomon clarifies what he wants to say, picking up in verse 15. He says, everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. And I've said this before in a couple sermons a while back, is it doesn't matter the richest person in the world, billionaires. Right now it happened to be a guy named Jeff Bezos. But when Jeff Bezos died, all the money that he earns, the hundreds of billions of dollars, how much does he actually own once he's dead? Zero. Because here's the thing, when we enter this world, we all come in equal, babies. When we exit this world, we all go out equal. Before and after, and we're all equal. During this time, we're all equal. Unfortunately, as human beings, we make money and status and education and all these things make us like, well, I'm more important or less important. The reality is, Solomon is saying everyone comes from his mother's womb, what? Naked. And everyone will depart that way. When we die, all that we own, all that we have, no longer ours. They take nothing from their toil. This too is a grievous evil. As everyone comes, so they depart. And what do they gain? Verse 16. Since they toil for the wind, all the days they eat in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. So use money wisely. Make it a servant, not a master. And unfortunately, when we love money, money becomes our master. Listen to Solomon's advice. This is what I observe to be good. This is verse 18. This is what I have observed to be good, that it is important for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given them. God is the one is in charge. He give all of us life. We come in the same, and when we leave it, we'll be the same. And what we should do from birth till death is to do good. And we work, we eat, we drink, we use the money, we use all the things that God have provided. But don't make any of those things our master. The only master that we should have is God. Verse 19 goes on, it says, moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possession and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot, and to be happy in their toil. And that's the point, is no matter who we are, we should be thankful. As a matter of fact, I thank God every day just for life itself, and the opportunity to work where I am and to serve as I do. And I'm thankful for the food I have and the house I have. Unfortunately, a lot of us aren't thankful. We aren't grateful. God is the one who provides all these things, and we should be grateful for them. So whatever wealth or non-wealth we have, we should accept the lot that God has given us and be happy. That going back to that verse 12, it says, the sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. It's not what we possess as far as money that makes us who we are. It's how we treat others and how we respond to God. As a matter of fact, here is Solomon's idea. It says, going back to verse 19, this is a gift from God. Life and all that we have is a gift from God. He points out that when a person have money, verse 20, they seldom reflect on the days of their lives because God keep them occupied with gladness of heart. And I know I'm one of those people who reflect a lot on many things. I read the Bible and I think about, what does this mean? What does this say? And I try to use it to teach and such. But today's 3 lessons, the first one is very important. Guard your steps. Not only at church, but everywhere. Watch what we say. Don't promise things. As a matter of fact, under-promise rather than over-promise. For it is better to under-promise. Secondly, is if we see a corrupt system, it's usually a leadership problem. As I mentioned where I saw officers that were abusing their office, it's because the lieutenant allowed it, and it's because the associate warden or the warden, and it was only when individuals stood up that problems stopped. And that is the same even in our government. If we have problems on the local city level, it's because we have problems in the state level. It's because we have problems in the national level. We see that especially in countries that have dictatorship, but it's also true here in America. The third part of the lesson was today about money. And this is not a subject that Solomon is going to drop. As a matter of fact, money is all over the Bible. It's there. And the love of money. But the point is, We should make money our servant. It is a tool that we use. Unfortunately, a lot of people make that tool God, and they love it so much they elevate it above God. And as Christians, you and I know that we should love God and have money as a servant to use as a blessing for ourselves and for others. I will close at that. We're almost 30 minutes, and I will see y'all next week in Ecclesiastes chapter 6, where we will continue this idea about money and other things also.